I'm Mike Bithell. I'm a green woodworker. I've been doing it for over 20 years now. This is my woodland, this is where I work. I do a lot of tool restoration, lots of sharpening and caring for tools.
Hi, I'm Will Westwood. I'm a woodland worker and rural craftsperson. I also am passionate about green woodworking, and in all those areas using and then maintaining tools is essential. So I'm going to try and show you a little bit of how you do that today.
Right. Well, the main reason to maintain tools is so that they work well. Some tools won't work at all unless they're properly maintained, particularly woodworking tools and edge tools in general. And a well-maintained tool is always more comfortable and easy to use.
To use a tool safely, it needs to be under control. As a tool becomes blunter, it requires more force to travel through the wood, so you lose control. So that's why it's important for safety to keep tools sharp. Handles can also cause problems for safety if they become loose or are damaged, both of which can cause a lack of control and they can become dangerous, such as axe handle that's loose can cause the head to fly off dangerously.
Another reason to maintain tools is to avoid wasting resources. Manufacturers aren't going to produce quality tools if people are going to regard them as disposable. This is an example of a tool that needs restoring. Handles can be replaced, make them out of ash usually. This is a spade I recently rehandled. That handle has got cleft wood, so the grain goes all the way through, so you wouldn't get this happening when you put force on it. For edge tools, sharpening is the most important form of maintenance. It's best done little and often rather than letting a tool become really blunt and then having to spend ages bringing it back. For woodworking tools, knowing how to correctly sharpen them is at least half the use.
A sharp edge is essentially two polished faces that meet at an exact point. Here you can see a blunt edge. The edge has become rounded, although the two faces are still there. Through sharpening, we remove metal from these faces to allow it to be taken to an exact point again.
When we refer to the bevel, we're talking about the plane that has been ground onto the tool to take the edge. That's looking at the tool from the side. That's a flat bevel. This is a convex bevel, like you might have on a double beveled axe. This is a concave bevel, where you may have ground that on a grindstone. Everyone has their own take on sharpening, but the basic principles remain the same. What we're trying to do is raise a burr on the back of the blade by following the bevel with the stone. When it gets to the point where it's sharp, then you get a small hook forming on the backside. That's the burr, which you then take off by using the stone along the flat side like that. Take the burr off and the tool will be sharp. Okay, this is a selection of our sharpening equipment. We're going to tell you what each of them is. To you, Will.
Yeah, the range of sharpening stones available, it can be baffling. There's so many different types, and everyone's got their particular favourites that they claim are the best, and all the others don't work. I'm quite fond of diamond stones. They're fast cutting and they're clean cutting. And there's two different types really. You kind of have slightly cheaper, simpler ones, which, like these ones here, which they're not flat. I mean, that thing bends. So they're not particularly suitable for chisels or kind of any finer woodworking tool, but they're very, very good for sharpening axes, bill hooks, all the kind of the tools you'd use in the woods. You get thicker, flatter bench diamond stones like these ones, or even this little one here. Now these are flat and true. They're good for sharpening plane irons, chisels, more tools you'd use in carpentry. Now a lot of people might have heard of water stones. This is one I've got here. Now these they sharpen really nicely, but they're quite soft and they wear unevenly very quickly, and they require flattening again, so they end up hollowed, and then you have to generally put them onto a diamond stone to flatten them back out again, which can be time consuming. But so it's nice for sort of small maintenance sharpening, but not very good for anything heavier. Another option, which is a little harder to come by and sometimes quite expensive, are natural stone. So this is a piece of honed slate from up in Snowdonia. It's a particularly fine grain structure that gives a very, very, very fine edge. Unless you're getting into very fine woodworking, generally you don't need to be looking at that kind of stone.
First I've got a strop, and this puts a final polish on the edge. This is Will's strop, so it's a slightly better quality than mine. It's got 2 grades of leather, and it's on a decent bit of wood rather than cheap bit of plywood. This is the buffing crayon that we use to coat them with. Then I have canoe stone. That's a new one. That's a worn one. Cigar stone. You can get these in different grades as well. Fine stone for, like, I use it on the loppers, but any other fine jobs do that. I usually use that with oil, and same with the slipstone. That's for sharpening the inside of gouges. Now I come to oil stones. This one is a cheap, coarse one that if I use that one if I want to take a lot of metal off. This one is a natural stone. I think it's a white washita, this one. If you can get them these days, they set you back quite a bit. I inherited that one. This one is same thing, but an artificial one, carborundum, probably some kind of carborundum compound. The important thing with these is to keep them flat. Avoid going up the middle with a thin chisel.
Now you've seen how much effort goes into sharpening tools, it's important to keep them that way, and storing them appropriately is the best way to do that.
You can keep rust off steel tools by using fine abrasive paper like this, and all you need to do is just give it a rub, take the rust off, then you can put it away with a coat of light oil, like that. So that's got a coating of oil on now. Then you can put some plastic over it like that, and then wrap it in a cloth, and you can put that away now, and that should stay reasonably safe. You should never put away tools when they're wet or dirty, because this will seriously shorten their life.
The edges of tools are surprisingly delicate and also dangerous, so guarding them is important so that they don't get damaged kind of by coming into contact with rocks or other pieces of metal, and also to avoid cutting yourself or anything that you don't want cutting. Things like axes can have sheaths made that protect them when in storage and also stop you from cutting yourself. Smaller tools like chisels and these auger drill bits here can nicely be protected in tool rolls. Saw blades often aren't sharpenable, so it's really important to protect the edge. Usually you can get plastic strips that fit over the blade that protects the edge and also again stops you from cutting yourself or damaging other things. And some better quality saws come with a scabbard. It's important to keep them guarded whenever they're not in use to stop them being damaged.
Wooden handles will benefit from a coat of linseed oil, and you can put that on with a cloth, and then you just wipe it over the handle. Doing that occasionally will prolong their life and stop them going rotten or anything like that.
If you start reading around the subject or watching YouTube videos about sharpening, it's very easy to get the impression that you need to spend a lot of money to be able to sharpen your tools effectively. that isn't true at all.
It's not what you got, it's what you do with it that counts. You do the sharpening, not the stone. You can have an incompetent sharpener with the most expensive stone in the world and you still won't be able to get a good edge.
I suppose on that note, don't start by sharpening your most precious tool that you care the most about. You know, it's there is potential that it can do some damage that you can't undo. Simple, cheap, entry-level sharpening stones will, you know, they might not work quite as well as some of the more expensive ones, but any sharpening stone or sharpening system is better than none, and it will get you more than satisfactory results and get you started until you have an idea of what you want to do and what you want to achieve. So just have a go, do it.